Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to our webinar. I'm Tiffany Brewster. I'm the Director of Policy and Advocacy at New Hampshire Businesses for Social Responsibility. And I want to welcome you to our Pathways to Prosperity webinar, What Makes New Hampshire Business Friendly? Our Pathways to Prosperity programming is designed to help convene businesses together and other partners to help inspire and share best practices, but also spread good information, which we hope to engage you with today. I want to say a special thank you to our funders that have made the work possible that we're about to tell you about today. The Couch Family Foundation, Nellie Mae Education Foundation, and New Hampshire Charitable Foundation. So the reason that we're here today, of course, is to talk about what makes New Hampshire business friendly. And that all came from the reports that we're releasing today about the roundtables that we had at the beginning of this year. And they were workforce roundtables around childcare, public education, and housing. And so I hope that you came ready to engage because I have a lot of engagement designed for you today. And this shouldn't be just your typical webinar where we're sitting here talking at you, but I hope that you engage with us in the conversation as well. And part of that engagement first, I want to thank our Pathways to Prosperity program sponsors. We have Needham Bank and Kennebunk Savings Bank, who have been amazing partners in all the work that we do and see the need to uplift and recognize and support this kind of narrative work that we're doing. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So for those that might not be familiar with NHBSR, I wanted to first take a moment to introduce ourselves. We're New Hampshire Businesses for Social Responsibility. Our tagline here is "In Good Company." We are the tribe that you've been looking for if you're not already part of it. So what we do is we work to convene businesses that share a desire to do well and do good. We support businesses and moving from just ideas to action, and we inspire through shared storytelling and best practices. And of course, we lead with our values because we know that we all must be the change we want to see in the world. So all of these things put us in a special position to be able to convene these roundtables that I talked about, release these reports, but also take them to the next level that we hope will inspire you and lead into a really important movement. So let me orient you a little bit to the day before the next hour and a half that we'll be spending together on what we'll be talking about. So before I dive into all of the results and also what it is that we're working towards and doing with them, I want to give you a little bit of context on why now, what we're doing here, and then talk about the process. Be very transparent about how it is that we arrived here, so you can understand how this all came to about. And then also feature voices. This is all about business and business voice. So we have a panel of two businesses that have graciously accepted our invite to talk about what business friendly means to them and how it shows up for their business. And then we'll dive right into the narrative and what it is to be business friendly. And then finally, this is when, of course, there's lots of engagement opportunity that we kind of lead you through what the possible actions are that you can take after you leave today. So, digging right into it, I first want to understand who's in the room. Who are we talking to today? Who are you all talking to today? So, I have here a link I'll put into the chat. You can also use your phone if you'd like, and go ahead and complete this poll. There's the link in the chat if you'd like to use your computer. And when you log into this little system, you have the opportunity to create a login or just continue as a guest if you scroll down a little bit. And after you fill that part out, you can fill in your name or write anonymous if you'd like, but you can select multiples here. So this is a little bit of a sense of what hat or hats multiple that you're coming to this with us today. So I see people joining. We have our little indicator down here, which is really helpful. And you can start filling out what role it is that you are coming and joining us here today. So we have lots and lots of business community, although only a few people have responded yet. We'll give folks another few minutes here. And if you're having a difficult time accessing the poll, then you can go ahead and also just put it in the chat. And also, if you feel like you're not represented in this poll, then I'd invite you to go ahead and put in the chat what we're missing. The code here, if you're looking for the code, is right on the screen, SQRT. So you can click on that link in the chat, and there's a code SQRT that you can use to access the poll. And we have 20 so people have joined this little poll. If you're just joining us, we're taking a quick poll on who's in the room here today. So you can use your phone with the QR code. I'll put the link in the chat one more time here. And you can click to either log in or you can continue as a guest and complete this little poll so that we understand who's in the room. I'll give you just another minute to fill that out. And you can select, you should be able to select multiple choices here. And when you're done with this poll, keep that screen or your phone handy because there's lots of other opportunity to engage as well. We'll be using this same system and you won't have to log in again to continue on with the day as well. So give me just another minute. I see 31 people in there or so. 29, I think, have completed. All right. So we have a pretty good spread between the nonprofit community and business community. We have a couple elected officials here, some media, funders, educators, and community members. So very excited to have you. And and the code here is SQRT. And Mike, we do have an elected official government or elected official is right here. So you can select that one if you're having a hard time there. And some folks are driving, that's totally okay. Be safe when you're driving. All right, fantastic. So this is helpful to understand who it is that we're talking to, primarily business, and then a few other folks here. So thank you so much for participating in that poll. I have another poll for you, or not poll, but another activity. So we'll move on to the next activity here. You should see it come up on your screen. And I'd like to start off the conversation before I tell you. I'd love to know from you, when you hear business friendly, what's the first word that comes to mind? So this is a word cloud activity. You should see it again. Oh, thank you for Lewis pointing out volunteer, board member for nonprofit. Love that. And that same link should work also for this. So if you're having a hard time, should give you a prompt on the same screen that you're on. Nobody has any thoughts on what business friendly means? Or the first word that comes to mind with business friendly? Here we go. There we go. Favorable tax incentives, taxes, employees, profit friendly, understand the needs of the business community, sustainable. Interesting. We have a lot of taxes, welcoming, community, great place to live, money, profit, lots of money, kind of opportunities here, supportive, beneficial to everyone, opaque, supportive, electric grid, collaborative, families, great place to live, inclusive. Let's see, people first, electric grid. So we've kind of run the gambit. Community favorable tax incentives are coming up loud and clear here. Taxes, taxes. So wonderful. Prioritized under laws and practices over individuals. Interesting. Okay. So I think we've gotten a lot of responses here. And I want to we'll come back to this. It is very interesting. And this is kind of a little bit of what we're working to move here is this focus on taxes, because although this is the first thing that we're hearing when we're hearing a lot of people talk about it here, we have a little bit of different findings in our roundtable report. So I'm excited to share those with you. But first, I want to give you some context. So why this? Why now? What are we doing? Why this matters is we know that employers, based on these roundtables that we convened and other employers that we talked to, that they don't see economic success and community well-being as competing priorities. They're seeing them as interconnected. And what we have right now is we have this momentum. Employers are speaking. They're telling us that this is the case. They're seeing the interconnection between people and their businesses. And they've probably always seen this connection between workforce and how it is that their businesses are able to be successful. But it's really reigning true in the current economic and situation in the world. So we have this opportunity, right? The window is open. We had 50 employers across 4 regions reinforce this idea, and we've compiled the data to show it in these roundtable reports. So they told us that they need solutions, and they're already doing everything that they can to address these problems. But they're really calling for collective movement towards something different. And so I'm excited to kind of reveal what that looks like for businesses. But I just wanted to start by, again, this is all about business voice. So highlighting business voice and what it really means for them. This quote has been quoted again and again since we've started this work and started to release information about it. But I don't need a 0.05% business tax deduction. If that helps my employees, it's an investment. So what we're hearing is businesses are seeing investment through, for example, business tax and investment through state investment as something that's going to benefit their business. So if we do nothing, we have some things that we could potentially risk here. And we know that we've seen already young families leaving New Hampshire. The Stay Work Play report supports that, but also we've heard it rampant throughout the business community that they are having their employees leave to places that are more affordable for families to live. And with that exodus, skilled workers become harder to find and our competitive edge erodes. And then eventually, perhaps businesses will start leaving. And that really matters for everybody in New Hampshire because if you didn't know, our business tax revenue is more than a third of our state budget. And so, despite the whole business case for it and why it really matters for business, it's also an economic issue for the vitality and the long-term success of New Hampshire as a state. So, before I dive into the reports themselves, let's talk a little bit about how we got here. We started by listening. If you don't know, I started with NHBSR in October, again, as the Director of Policy and Advocacy. And before I stood one foot into the State House or into Concord, I needed to understand where the pain points were for businesses in our particular issue areas and how it is that they wanted to be represented. So we convened 4 roundtables across 4 regions listed here, and we had 50 individual employer leaders participate, and they represented 44 companies. We had amazing, amazing partners that helped to get those folks there and also to help with the conversation. It was a humongous lift. We had incredible facilitators, incredible nonprofit partners that were our issue experts in each of these workforce topics that we covered in those particular roundtables. So say it right here, big thank you to all the people that made these roundtables possible. So this kind of snowballed bigger than anything that I could have planned for, actually. And if you know me, you know I like planning. So this is the process that we went through here. We listened some more after the roundtables. So we collected those 50 employer insights and we gave them back to the participants of the roundtables for validation. And we said, we heard you say this. Does this sound right? And from there, we were able to produce those 3 roundtable reports. And we knew that we wanted to host a policy forum in March. And during that validation session, I came in with the preconceived notion that businesses wanted to build this narrative together, but what they said was, we need something to react to. Give us the business narratives. You heard it. You know what the data is. You have the data in the roundtable reports. So what we did is build those narratives and gave them again back to the business community at the policy forum and got lots of feedback. It was an amazing event where we had posters and people wrote directly on them, crossed things out, highlighted, underlined, circled things. And it was really helpful to help hone in those messages. And then that led us here to today, where we have one shared message, one overall message that talks about what business friendly is for businesses in New Hampshire and really amplifies the business voice in that message. And so you can access these reports at nhbsr.org/pathways to prosperity resources. That QR code will take you directly to that page as well. And so these three reports, they're very comprehensive, they're very thick. We have long form and short form reports if you're more of a quick read kind of person, but they were intended to be representative of everything that we heard. But there were some really stark through lines that came through about what employers told us that they want to build. And they want to build a stronger workforce, a resilient workforce, a robust workforce, and they see that thriving communities is what really keeps us economically competitive, long-term competitiveness, and also that they want to see long-term investment for opportunity for young talent and families. So these are the most important through lines that came through in the reports. But we have some businesses here today that participated in these roundtables. Their businesses participated in these roundtables, and I have some really pointed questions to walk through them today. So again, this is really all about business voice and amplifying that. So I'd love to welcome here today. I want to make sure that Eric made it in. I don't see him
I
here.
don't see Eric in the room, but I have Mariah pinned.
Okay, so Mariah is here. I'm not sure what happened, but perhaps while we're talking, you could email Eric for me.
I
Um,
have, yeah.
okay, great. So we have Mariah Davis here from Mascoma. She's a community impact officer. She's been an amazing partner in all of this work, but and Mascoma did participate in the roundtables as well. So really excited to welcome Mariah here. And so Mariah, I'd love to just kick it off a little bit here and ask you to tell us a bit about your business and what made Mascoma want to do build a business here in New Hampshire, which is a funny question because you've been here a long time. So, so we can dig into that, but also what you love about operating in the state.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to kick off, and Eric may join us later. So, hi everyone. I know I was looking at the list of attendees. There's some of you that I know, which is really exciting, and a lot of you that I don't know. So, I'm Mariah. I'm Community Impact Officer at Mascoma Bank. So, to kind of what Tiffany was alluding, we have been in New Hampshire since 1899. So, that was our headquarters in Lebanon, which is still our headquarters today. So, we've been, not a new business in New Hampshire by any means, but we were started as a local small community bank for essentially the working people. Back then, Lebanon was a mill town, like many of our other towns, and wasn't as developed as it is today. And through the years, we've built, acquired other, banks, and included Vermont in our service area, along with New Hampshire, and also Portland, Maine. So really, the northern New England area is our region that we serve. I think that kind of like what is great about operating in New Hampshire is that it's a small state. So sometimes that means that we run into all kinds of people at the grocery store, but it also means that it's really easy to connect with people. And, I'll go to a meeting, see some folks, go to another meeting in a week and see the same people. And so I think when it comes to talking about impact, societal community issues, we're able to do that and can really find the right people. If you don't know the right person, usually someone knows that person. And so I think that makes it special that we are a small state. And so our ability to kind of connect with one another is a little bit easier.
I love that so much. Thanks for sharing, Mariah. And I think that we can probably all relate to running into those people. Like, I didn't know you lived here. I didn't know you were around here. So definitely can relate as a very small state. And when you do work here in community, then you see everyone everywhere. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd love to kind of switch a little bit over here to talk about kind of the stake and the impact. And I want to ask you, when we call housing, childcare, and schools workforce issues, it can sound kind of abstract. So can you give us a more concrete story about any of these issues where there's a hire you couldn't make, or an employee you nearly lost or did lose, perhaps a morning that fell apart because of having the support there, where one of these showed up in your business?
Hmm. Yeah, so I have lots of stories. I think the first place where I would start is, housing is, I think, the number one issue that kind of all of us know has been an issue for years and years at this point, across the nation too. It's not a New Hampshire unique issue. Housing has definitely impacted our workforce in ways that we have, traditionally banks are like fully in person. Remote work was like not really anything that really happened prior to COVID, except for maybe the really large banks out there. But that was something that we did open up during 2020, and we actually have continued remote work because during that time we were expanding our kind of technology capability and technology side of things. And so we were looking for programmers, mostly software programmers, folks who had pretty technical skills and expertise that we needed. And what we found was that there wasn't a ton of people locally that had those skill sets. And so then we had to start kind of opening up remotely across the US. I think last I knew, we have about employees in 20 different states. So a lot of those states may only have one person that works for us, but we have had to expand kind of who works at Mascoma that's not just in Vermont or New Hampshire or Maine, which for many, many years, all of our workers were very hyper local. That's still the vast majority of our folks are still very much in Vermont and New Hampshire, especially, but we do have folks in other states. We've also seen people who are looking for a lower cost of living. And so they work for us and then they decide to, we have a couple folks in Tennessee, for instance. And so they decide to move to Tennessee or other southern states where it's a little bit cheaper. And they still work for us because they're great workers. And I think, management is kind of looked at, is it important to have all of our people hyper local, like right here? Or do we want to just keep good workers? They do great at their job. They just are living in a different zip code. And so that's kind of how we've been kind of navigating that. But I think it just goes to kind of show that the importance of getting talent into the state, because I know we are not the only business that has to look elsewhere. We would 100% prefer to hire people in New Hampshire, local to us. That's always the preference. But there are times when that just can't happen because the people aren't here. So that is definitely something that we've had to kind of have conversations about. And then I think just one other kind of another issue, I think childcare, that has been something that has been a challenge with our employees who are welcoming a new addition to their family. Our HR department, I don't work in human resources, but I know that, that's like one of the first things they ask someone when they say they're welcoming a new family member is like, have you looked into childcare? Because we know that not only is it, really pricey for most people in their kind of their price point or in their budget, but really the accessibility and the availability of childcare, I think, has been something that's been kind of maybe a wake up call for a lot of folks. Like, you want something that's close to work, you want something close to home, and like all the slots are filled. So now you're having to look elsewhere. And so that is something that definitely our employees have just had to kind of work through and realize like they might have to make some sacrifices, even if they can afford the care. Sometimes it's just there's not a slot for their child to be. So those are just a few examples of things that we've not had happen once or twice, but have happened multiple times.
Yeah, I think I'm sure all of the businesses here and even nonprofit, all of us have these millions and millions of stories, and we heard so many of the same things echoed through the roundtables that you talked about, Mariah, between having people leave because there are other places that are less expensive to live, and also because there is I'm going to stop sharing my screen here because there are uh, less expensive places even to compete for people to talent to come to New Hampshire at all. One of the roundtable participants told us that a new graduate said that it was cheaper to live in Chicago than in Manchester, which to me struck me as like, wow, Chicago
Wow.
has a whole lot more to offer than Manchester. So we're really kind of not able to compete in the same way for the same talent. So it's unfortunate. But
Yeah.
I'd love to kind of pivot to maybe some more positive things here and just ask, in the legislature, business friendly is often kind of shorthand for lower business taxes. And I just wonder if that actually matches what makes it possible for your organization, Mascoma, to recruit and retain and grow here. And what would you add to it?
Yeah, yes, this is a great question. And during our World Cloud exercise, we saw those terms and taxes and profits and things like that came up, which, all of those things, especially profits, have such a impact on a business and the success of a business. So we don't want to, undermine that. But I think for us, um, really like we want to be able to attract and also retain the talent that we have, and we would prefer those folks to live here, and to stay here once we've hired them. Again, we've worked with people case by case scenarios, but again, like our number one hope is that we have folks that are living in New Hampshire, or Vermont. So I think that some other things when we talk about business friendly is looking at those different areas of housing and childcare and public education. And I think that all of those things do have an impact on business, do have an impact on our workforce. I think maybe in the past it wasn't as maybe like highlighted, or it wasn't like as much of a concern. But I think now, when we think about like housing inventory and home prices, and if you're trying to recruit somebody, for a specialized role or an executive role, we have found like our executive level staff, we are recruiting nationally, and then we have to like convince them to come to New Hampshire and Vermont, which are beautiful parts of the state, 100%. And then I think people look at home prices, or they look at public education, and childcare, and then they kind of maybe think a little bit differently about taking that job. So there's so many other things that impact business and what makes a state business friendly. And I think public education is an interesting one because my work is I educate myself on kind of what are the community issues. And so housing and childcare have been these two things that our CEO does a ton of work in housing, and I've really dived into childcare. But public education is not necessarily one that we've really like talked much about or said like, oh, this is actually a really big issue. But I think that really recently, of the last year, 2 years, it's becoming a topic that is important to talk about and can definitely impact business. And when you're trying to attract families, but particularly young families or people who haven't started their families but would like to, like public education is like probably behind housing, like the second thing they're going to be looking at. And so it's important to have strong public education, I think, in order to kind of help us to attract and retain our talent. So all these things are super interconnected. And once you kind of start looking into it, you're like, okay, I can see how it's all like the dotted lines are like adding up together.
I love so much how you framed that as kind of this balancing act. It's not that it's that taxes don't matter, and it's that there's more to it. And I think you really articulated that super well. And just kind of tacking onto that a little bit more and bringing back that quote at the beginning that I read about, I don't need a 0.05% business tax deduction. If that helps my employees, it's an investment. Does that resonate with you? And how do you weigh those trade-offs?
Yes, I loved that quote. When I first saw it, when Tiffany shared that, I was like, yes, that kind of embodies a little bit, I think, our spirit. I would say resonates. And I think, one example that I'll share that some on the call definitely will know about and some may not, is across the river in Vermont, which I know we don't like to compare ourselves to Vermont all the time, but I do live right on the border. So it's a state we operate in. So we know a little bit of what's going on over there. And in 2024, they implemented an employer childcare tax. And so this is a tax that employers pay. And it's based on the number of workers that you have. So although we're not headquartered in Vermont, we do have quite a few of our workers that live in Vermont and work there. And so this tax gets implemented. I think when kind of the idea of it was coming around, it definitely had support of local business. There was also some businesses that frankly don't want to pay the tax. I think that's always a reality. But I think what made this unique and maybe a little bit easier to kind of convince people or to help business leaders see why it's important is that this was a tax that at least had a very tangible outcome to it. So we as a business understand we're paying these taxes and it's helping to make childcare more affordable for our workers. And so having something that we can understand the outcome, we can understand what is the benefit to us in order to be, basically adding to our expenses. Is something that I think goes back to that quote. It's an investment. There's, I think the data around kind of the impact of this taxes is still going out, but I had looked at some preliminary stuff and it has made, childcare more affordable for families. So it does seem like it has worked. And so that's kind of one, sort of concrete example of a way that, we didn't necessarily have a choice in paying the taxes. But we, I think, happily said, yep, that makes sense. And, if it supports our workers, then it's something we want to do.
Amazing. Thanks for sharing that, Mariah. And it's a really important distinction too about that. You knew what it was going towards as a business,
Right.
and it's an investment that I think a lot of and our roundtable reports show they're already making into the community, to be honest. And
Yeah.
they're working to solve it in New Hampshire on a case by case basis, and it's kind of really more of a systemic issue that needs broader support than any one business can really shoulder. So
Mhm.
it's a really unique perspective that you're able to bring, having that experience from Vermont. So
Yeah.
would love to think about too, kind of the stake. If for New Hampshire, especially where you have this kind of dual state perspective, for New Hampshire, if nothing changes over the next 5 to 10 years, what does that mean for Mascoma Bank and for your community?
Mhm. Yeah. This is if we had a crystal ball and we could see 10, 5, 10 years out. I think for this, we're a different type of business. I think community local banks very much have a vested interest in the economy of their states doing well. The vast majority of our lending, our deposits are local. So they are New Hampshire or they're Vermont or Maine. So when we think about we can't get younger folks into the state, and so people are retiring out of the workforce, and now businesses are having to shut down or having to relocate to different parts of the country where they can find workers and whatnot. That all impacts the economy. And so I think for us, there's kind of this financial reason why we want to be involved in these issues, because we want New Hampshire to be a strong state and to be a state that people want to move to, because it has housing options and it has great public education and it has, childcare affordability. So we definitely have a vested interest in this. And so I think when, if nothing happens, you kind of start to see the consequences of that. And I think with so many other things, oftentimes, like once we start to see the consequences of maybe something we've been ignoring for a decade or more, and that's kind of when like the light switch comes on of like crisis mode now, and it can be hard to get yourself out of that hole a little bit. So I think it's really important that we have these conversations, and we start to kind of think about like what can we be doing now, and in the near future, so that we're not in a place 10 years, 15 years, 20 years where businesses are having to move out of the state, places have to close down, consolidate, that kind of thing. So it's definitely something that we want to be mindful of.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you put it really well, where just at the end there, where these are the real potential consequences of people leaving New Hampshire, which means that it makes it more difficult for other people just to stay here because there are less services, there are less businesses to choose from, and people and work. So it really could potentially lead to the deterioration of a lot of the systems that we rely on.
Yeah.
So just to kind of wrap it all up in a bow and just kind of pose one last question for you here of kind of business's role here and maybe but some potential hope here is that there's a lot of businesses that are doing workarounds and kind of solving this on a one-on-one basis. What would it look like for the business community to act together? And I know that there are some as well. So like what are those beacons of hope as well that you're seeing?
Yeah. There is some hope, right? Like when I go to discussions like this, or we look at the data, sometimes it can feel a little bit like want, like, like there goes my day. But there is hope. But I think what you said is like, I think right now, a lot of us are kind of patching gaps a little bit individually. So if we have a worker who is welcoming a baby, they need childcare options, we will work with them one on one, give them resources to like help point them to the way. And so I feel like we really support our workers well, but that is on a case by case situation, and that doesn't help like the larger community. Because they are their system challenges. And so, yeah, I think that there is hope, kind of having these conversations, having businesses discuss, in government, discuss shared solutions. It's also like potentially shared investments and shared advocacy. And I think one thing that I've thought a lot about too is I think with housing, childcare, public education, and you could put on all kinds of other issues, they're massive. Like not one entity can fix that. Like the businesses like can't fix housing by themselves. Like it's going to take government contribution and business contribution and just our general like community. So it's really this is like a multi approach from different sectors that if we can work together, I do think there are some shared solutions, but businesses can't do it on their own. The government can't do it on their own to solve some of these things. And so it's really about kind of that collective effort, and I think the hope is that there have been some positive things that have come out, like with zoning laws and such with housing. And there's a lot of conversation around childcare and some potential solutions there. So I think that there's things happening behind the scenes, which is really exciting. And I think it's also important for the business community to kind of, get behind those kind of shared kind of future states as well. And that's one way we can get involved is by lifting up those that are doing the work and are creating the solutions and, assisting them, whether that's investing or advocacy or whatnot.
Wonderful. You got a heart there. Thanks, Devin. I love that. Yeah, I love everything that you said. You're entirely basically you've already told everybody what the framework here is, and you've really articulated everything so beautifully about the balance and the impacts and how these things are needed to continue doing business in New Hampshire and continue for New Hampshire to be a place that people want to live. And I know through the roundtables, especially, that we heard a lot about solutions, but even more so at our spring conference, we made maps, like handwritten maps with all of our attendees about different solutions that are going on across the state. So there's really solid, amazing work that's being done that could be a model for future policy and scaling up through government work. So really excited to see what comes, and just wanted to say thank you so much, Mariah, for bringing in your perspective from Mascoma and kind of doing the work for me here. You introduced the concept of business friendly beautifully, and so appreciate your time on that.
Yeah, no problem. And I promised the audience Tiffany and I didn't collaborate, so
I just gave her the questions, and I think they speak for themselves.
yeah, happy to be here, and yeah, I'm looking forward to the rest of the time today.
Awesome. Wonderful. I'm going to shift gears and reshare my screen. I'll remove the pin here so I can see all the rest of you and reshare my screen. Beautiful. Okay. All right. So here it is. There's the narrative. This is when people thrive, businesses thrive. Uh, we have this concept that was developed straight from the roundtable reports that we've heard time and time again through from business, from Mariah here. When people thrive, communities, everybody around us thrive. We know that businesses can thrive because people are what make up businesses at the end of the day. So we've developed and are launching this concept, Business Friendly New Hampshire. There's the logo. You can see it right there. And we want you to use this. We want you to be able to come away today with real opportunity and ability to talk about this concept in your own words with your own stories. And I think lots of you have the same stories. We heard all of the same stories. I have stories on stories of employers that have become landlords, employers that have become loan officers, employers that have opened childcare centers, that have paid for childcare for employees. I mean, the stories are phenomenal of what business is doing. And the reality is that we need to start talking about business friendly in a way that talks about the greater community, because that is what makes it possible for businesses to not be pulled away from their core missions and to really be able to focus on making a profit if that's what they're doing, or providing healthcare, or manufacturing materials. All of those things are so very important. So the business friendly narrative, let's kind of dig in a little bit deeper into what that means. And I want to give you a really solid definition. And what it really is, more than a definition, it's an aspirational statement. It's where it is that we want to be. What would it look like for New Hampshire to be business friendly? And the answer is that it is, in a business friendly New Hampshire, we invest in the things that matter. We invest in people and places and our shared future together. Those are the things that make New Hampshire the best place to do business. And those things rest on sound policy that helps to create the space and the investment for those things, as well as this culture, New Hampshire's culture, that we have this rugged individualism that's also built on working together to solve problems. We come together in town meetings, we come together in school board meetings, and we solve problems together. We have limited resources as a state, and we're scrappy as all get out, and we get it done. Businesses are just as scrappy, and they make things work. So the policy and culture that support that investment in the things that matter is really what this aspirational place that we're looking to achieve here in a business friendly New Hampshire. And so I don't even feel like I have to go through these slides. Mariah already said it so wonderfully, that we have this traditional definition, and we saw it at the beginning with the word cloud, that we were thinking about business friendly as low taxes and regulation that enables business to do what they do best. We need regulation, of course, but if we want it to be sound regulation and things that aren't too restrictive for business. That's the traditional working definition that we have. But it's so much more than that. It's not that the taxes don't matter and the regulation doesn't matter. Those are just one piece of this whole engine of things that need to be considered to make New Hampshire competitive for businesses. We need workforce, right, that drives talent competitiveness. We need childcare that enables the workforce. We need housing that connects talent to jobs and community. All of these things are part of this broader definition of an expansion of this idea of what business friendly really needs to mean for our state and for businesses that operate in it. And so all of this taken together, it's just one message that can be used in all of the conversations. It's really applicable to going to the legislature. It's applicable to going to school board meetings, housing discussions, economic development. This is why the narrative exists. It's the tool that was developed from these roundtable reports that we hope don't just sit on a shelf. And that they're here for you to use, but this is the tool that came from the roundtables and all of the business voice that we heard here. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a moment and just here's our pop quiz. When someone says business friendly just means low taxes, pop quiz, how do you respond? And so I'll stop sharing for a minute so that folks, if they want to come off mute and sort of repeat what it is that you're hearing, or you can put it in the chat. I'd love to hear folks talk about it in their own words for a moment. Any brave takers? I see. Oh, you're right. It is about taxes and it's about so much more. Love that, Scott. Justin, I see you came on video and off mute. You want to tag in?
Yeah, I'd say, business friendly is about good policy that works for your employees and the business as a whole. It's just a simple, succinct.
That's so good. I love that. Very simple, repeatable, hopefully.
Yeah.
Thanks, Justin. Where are you from, Justin?
Revision Energy.
Ah, seen I recognize you. Nice to meet you, Justin.
Hampshire Energy Week. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good time.
Great. Any other brave takers after Justin? I know he said it so well. And also feel free to put it in the chat if you're feeling sheepish. We can move on. I won't put all this pressure on you all. I'm going to reshare my screen here. So yes, exactly as Justin said here. People, places, it supports the workforce. It's policy that supports the workforce. It's a culture that helps us get things done to make that possible. So thank you for your input on that. And so you're probably thinking, cool, this is awesome. Love this. What now? I hope you're thinking this is awesome. So the question now is, what do we do with it? I'm glad you asked. So we have developed the business action menu that goes with both the overall narrative, but we've also developed a business action menu that goes hand in hand with each of the different workforce issues. So I'll preview that a little bit and tell you more. But essentially, they revolve around these different actions that you can do that are at all kinds of different levels and depends on your own comfort level with your business and what your tolerance for risk is. Because of course, there's always risk for a business to speak out. So the very first one, unite on redefining business friendly. What does that look like? That means that you're joining in this coalition. Mascoma's already said, yeah, we get it. Business friendly makes sense for us in that these are things that we know and we can talk about with our business. So you're joining a larger voice and you're saying business friendly is a real thing and starting to talk about it here. You can advocate by supporting the conditions for competitiveness, which has to do with all those workforce issues, but as well as we have energy as well as climate readiness. And so we'll dig into, I have a lot more to tell you about here, but you can participate by showing up where decisions are made in the legislature, in school board meetings, all the different places. You can share the business-friendly narrative through your own story. So shifting the narrative by telling your story and talking about it in the context of this business-friendly framework. And of course, you can partner by building solutions together. And maybe these solutions are things that could work at a greater scale that support the development of policy pilots in different ways that we can see how business investment moves the needle on these really important workforce and energy and climate issues. So don't go anywhere. Don't leave, people. Hold on. Breakout rooms is a dirty word in the Zoom land, it feels like. So don't leave just yet. I'd love for folks to be able to connect on a one-on-one basis, not one-on-one, 2 or 3 people to kind of spend some time reacting and thinking about this. But before we do that, I'm going to tell you about, see, people are already leaving. I'm going to tell you about the next steps. So to try and get those people that need to jump on. I know that some folks will need to jump off at 1 o'clock as well. I want to talk about those next steps. So before we go into breakout rooms. So we have more to tell you about. So we have this Pathways to Prosperity webinar series and upcoming webinars. In these upcoming webinars, you see each of these workforce issues and as well as climate resilience issues that we'll be digging into each month. And so along with these webinars, we'll also be releasing all the data and information that we collected about solutions at the spring conference. And so these are more webinars, more about the same in framing for each of these individual workforce and climate issues, but they're also about digging in and we'll be going into breakout rooms and really wrestling with the business action menus so that people can be engaged in advocacy. They can be engaged in local solutions. And so these are working sessions. They're webinars, but they're very, very much going to be working sessions. So I'd invite you to participate in any of those. And I'd also ask you to use the business-friendly narrative. These are I'll drop the links in the chat, but this is the link to go ahead and register for any of the future webinars using that link that I just put in the chat. And then there's also the landing page for all of the information that you heard today. So you have the business-friendly framework, you have all of these downloadable content and resources that we'll continue to add to with social media posts. We expect you, if you notice, the business-friendly logo does not have NHBSR in or on it. We want you to download it and co-brand it, use it however it is that you'd like to use it. It's an open resource that we want people to walk away with and be able to use in whatever way makes the most sense for your organization. So that is, those are the 2 asks. So from there, we'll go back here to breakout discussions. So if you're going to hop off because of not if you have another meeting or if you're not able to participate in the breakout rooms, totally understand. I'd ask you to go ahead and drop off if you're doing that right now. But otherwise, we'd love to invite you to have conversations with the folks that came today and kind of wrestle with some of these things. I hope that you may make some new connections and also have a lot of opportunity to kind of share experiences and tell us what you think. So I'd invite you with these 3 questions. I'm going to put these 3 questions in the chat for you. But I want you to react. I want to ask you what lands, what surprised you about this. I want you to wrestle with the questions that you're left with. What are the possibilities here? Where do you feel tension with the narrative, or or that the idea that it's the business community's job to change this narrative? And also want you to decide, what are you going to commit to potentially on this business action menu? After that, I'm going to bring everybody back and we can have like a brief report out and opportunity for people to report what they had in their conversations. So with that, we only have about 20 people left, so I might shift gears and just do a group discussion here, if that works for people, because folks are leaving at the 1 o'clock hour as I anticipated. So let's do this a different way. I already prepared for this, you all. So exciting that you all stayed. Thank you for staying. And, um, so I have here some opportunity to wrestle. We'll have a little small conversation with you 18 people left. Thanks for staying. And so I've changed the questions a little bit for this smaller group discussion. So the same react, wrestle, report back one takeaway as we walk through this, and then decide what you'll commit to. So let's break these down one at a time here. So you can use this if you want. It's like an open question if you're not the type of person to come off of mute. This is the same system that we're using earlier today. So if you still have it open, amazing. And if not, we can drop the link in the chat for you. Again, if Zena, if you wouldn't mind helping me with that. But I'd invite anybody that wants to come off of mute and just react. What lands, what surprised you?
Elizabeth had a question in the chat, Tiffany.
Tell me. Let's see. Elizabeth. Visited 4 regions. How does this discussion apply to business in the remote areas of the North Country where services are slim and support selective? There's an embarrassment of riches in Seacoast and Capital Region, Upper Valley, Monadnock have some similarities to COAS, but have the value of the true color education as an anchor. How do we translate this? That's an amazing question, Elizabeth, and thank you so much for bringing that up. I've had some conversations in the North Country, and the North Country, as those from the North Country, I'm assuming Elizabeth, that you're from the North Country, is like another entire place. So it's certainly so important to highlight the really unique challenges that are posed in the North Country. And I know as far as like childcare, especially, the options are so slim and individuals have to drive so far to make that work for their families. And so we know that some of these challenges exist. And I would say that the narrative itself applies statewide, certainly. And the roundtable results are reflective of the regions that we were able to host roundtables in, and we hope to do more conversations in there. And it seems like those conversations might be really helpful on somewhat of an individual basis, where we can go to those businesses and see firsthand what it is that they're working towards. But there are very unique challenges in the North Country, and they should be highlighted kind of almost independently. And I know that you all have a really amazing initiative going, Go North, that really focuses on health in the North Country. And just as with that initiative, the North Country feels like it has earned its own individual space in a lot of these issues because they're so uniquely different and so uniquely important as well. It is an island, yes. A little bit of aloha on the island of Coas. I love that. So I hope that helps. I'd love to have you come off mute, Elizabeth, and react to that if that feels like something that you want to do. But or not, you don't have to.
There's nothing worse than hearing your own voice, to be honest. Yeah,
We're a friendly group.
it's it's so funny because we moved here 26 years ago from Kansas City, and boy, there's been a learning curve, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And so in 2019, we bought what we call our camp or escape pod in Manchester, because I had to have urban feels, and or else I was going to shrivel up and die and blow away. And so having a toehold in Manchester is the best of both worlds, I will admit, because then I can see the growth, the productivity, the innovation. I mean, there's so much going on down there, which I just love and I just like inhale. But then you come back here and it's like, I mean, which I love the quiet. It's lovely and it's beautiful here, but seems like it's always moving at a snail's pace.
Yeah.
So I think that's where, when you're talking about, this is my second business that I've started, in COAS, and it's a heavy lift, and I'm just a tiny little business, so I can't imagine what it would be like to have a large scale business try and come in and manage and work the room to be able to get established.
Yeah, no, I hear, oh gosh, all of that. I am born and raised in New Hampshire, never lived in the North Country. However, have done a lot of work in my previous role, working with people in the North Country, and I have a good friend actually from the North Country that works in the ECE space. So uh it just deserves its own special attention, I feel like. And that's why I love initiatives like Go North, and not in a bad way, but certainly in the best way possible. Y'all need trusted people up there, and work at a different pace than the rest of the state. So I love what has come up here. Surprised by the creativity of these conversations, and business and children are not opponents. We don't have to choose. I love that so much. Anybody else want to come off mute or put anything in the chat about what lands or what surprises?
Can I put someone on the spot?
Oh, do it.
I wonder if Andrew would be willing to contribute some of what he's heard from their own roundtables, and if any of it is aligned. And I know the Granite Outdoor Alliance has done their own roundtables, and I've seen similar themes. Andrew, would you mind?
No, not at all. Thanks, Zena and Tiffany. Nice to see everyone. Yeah, we hosted 3 roundtables. Granite Outdoor Alliance works with about 130 outdoor industry organizations, and we hosted 3 again roundtables, and came out with a report just about a week or 2 ago. And really, again, it seems like the challenges are, like the fragmentation seems to be a real sort of constant theme, where we have the systems, but we're not really talking to each other, and recognizing that collaboration really is an opportunity for businesses to and organizations like NHBSR to maybe fill the gap when I think it was Elizabeth, the last caller, her speaker, said they just might have small bandwidth. And so why reinvent the wheel? And that's particularly true, I think, dealing with policy. So we certainly saw that. Again, there's a real, there's so many strengths, I think, that New Hampshire has, but it is hard to get them to understand that this is a dynamic state. And again, we look at it from quality of life. Tiffany, in one of the prior slides, you had culture, and we find that that's a real big issue, is attracting talent. A question I had for Mariah was, and I don't know if there's a Q&A, but with Mascoma being a B Corp, it's interesting to think about, does that attract and retain talent? And so, again, without Mariah, I don't mean to put you on the spot here, but yeah, no. So again, really finding that, infrastructure is critical, and working together will be a big part of it.
Yeah. Andrew, I can tell you that we have found that for our employees, being a B Corp has definitely attracted talent and has retained talent. We've also done a lot of surveys customer-wise, and we find that general person doesn't really know, or it's not important to them. And so we have, knowing that, we definitely, it's something that, it's important to us because of our employees. Yeah.
Interesting. And that is, it's great to hear about your customer, that they get, but obviously for the employees, especially, I think that's probably true with the younger, people who might be more familiar with it, rather opposed to a 54-year-old like myself, who, I travel in these circles, but, a 34 or 24-year-old might have more of a sort of exposure to that.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Andrea. And I'll say, as far as Q&A is concerned, we're in it right now, so you're welcome to ask any questions of anybody here. So feel free, feel free. That is, in fact, the next question is, what questions are you left with here? So um, uh, reshare here a little bit, but I'll probably take it down in a minute. But this one is interesting. I'd actually love for everybody to participate if you'd like to, but if you pull this same tool up here, it's going to automatically put you into one of these two groups, possibilities and questions. So it makes you think of that particular issue. But I would also invite people to come off of mute if you wanted to just have a discussion here. But I would love to kind of force people into these spaces and say, what are the possibilities with this, and what questions do you have left?
Hi there. I guess my reflection is, in a sense, surprised that has it really taken us this long to get here? And like, I'm wondering, Tiffany, if you have any reflection on sort of what you've heard, like, why has this not been apparent, or what have been the hurdles to bring issues forward in this way in the past?
Yeah, I would actually point, I have lots of opinions about that, but I'll keep those a little bit to myself and point more to the roundtable reports, because that they're actually really well highlighted by a lot of businesses that talked about what they see as those hurdles, and some of it is our government structure being what it is, where we're hiring for $100 a year legislators to are electing legislators at a $100 a year, which gives a certain demographic of individuals that are even have enough privilege to participate in something like that. I'm going to stop sharing my screen real quick here. Still go ahead and keep working on the questions and possibilities if you started on that. But yeah, businesses really highlighted the political climate. We can just summarize it all out with the political climate and the willingness. And we've seen in recent years, especially, that elected officials are receiving from their constituency mass opposition to legislation that they're proposing and still moving forward with it. And businesses are noticing. Businesses are saying so. And that's the New Hampshire way. It's always been done. I know. And so I'm not necessarily, and businesses didn't suggest that these structural things need to change per se, as much as they want legislators to listen. They want legislators to be a partner and to be somebody that works towards the things that matter to their constituency. And I think the broader political climate that we're in is very divided, of course, and there's a lot of partisanship. So that was named very extensively across all of the roundtables. Any other questions or possibilities? I see people logged into the
Kelly's off mute.
Yeah, I'll
Oh,
offer
go ahead.
a sort of question that continues to rattle in the back of my mind. Hi, everyone. My name is Kelly. I'm from Reaching Higher in New Hampshire. So we're a policy organization that focuses on education. So that's my personal area of interest. I'm a lifelong resident of the Lakes region, and I really appreciated what you said, Tiffany, about the fact that like the circumstances in the North Country sort of are specific and unique to them. I also think the Lakes region has like a funky vibe to it as well, in that we're always sort of stuck at this tension point between what the community needs, but what the tourists want. And there's an acknowledgement that the the community has to be there in order to receive and embrace the tourists, but how do you balance investments, I suppose. And so
Yeah.
a question that will remain in my head is how do communities who build their value based on a transient population of people make the case for investing in the infrastructure that you're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I totally appreciate that. And it was called out in the roundtable discussions to some extent in the Upper Valley where the the housing is being affected by tourism, of course. So you have individuals or even larger corporations buying up housing for tourism. And it's really important that tourists have a place to stay. It drives the economy in those areas. So um I don't think I have an answer for you, to be honest. And
I would also add to Kelly's concern, if business is bought up by outside ownership in New Hampshire, we find a similar trend of conflicting interests between local investment and outside ownership. So it's the local businesses that are based here and invested in the community that we find are most engaged in those issues. So similarly, if the ownership is outside for houses, for businesses, you get less and less engagement in these issues.
And I would say that Kelly, I would sort of point to businesses to answer that question of like how do we balance that? I mean, all of this is about business voice. Like I have my own thoughts certainly, and also I think it's really important to highlight those. I saw Debbie say during the roundtable discussions, each region had their own unique focus area and feel, but there was also a lot of consensus throughout. It's worth reading the reports to find out more. I love that, Debbie. And something that I was going to also mention and highlight that each was certainly unique, and we have a section in each of those reports that highlights those differences between regions or the things that stood out most as those. So, James, I see your hand there.
Thanks. This is really great. I'm wondering um, if we heard or if we should be thinking about how do we bypass the government?
I yes.
I mean, we've
So
got companies that are starting to, like in the Upper Valley. Is it Listen, I guess, or one? They're and it's happening in southern New Hampshire too, buying property to create housing for their people.
Yep, in Manchester too. Yep.
So businesses are
So,
already doing it, I'll
right.
say for sure, absolutely. And they're kind of, and it's very clear in the reports. They've said we're tapped out, like we're doing everything that we can. Businesses are working together to bypass the government, as you say, but more saying like businesses get it done. They don't have to wait for bureaucracy, and also they don't have to worry that the funding is going to change on the shift of a dime because the budget the majority in the House and the Senate in New Hampshire changed, or the president is different, or like funding is different because of different political situations. So there is this kind of play and tension between um, businesses wanting to ensure that there's consistency, but that's why the framework is so important to say like the policy supports this and that government is a reliable, steady partner as the aspiration to work towards. It's not that this exists obviously currently today. And I think that the model is also that business comes up with these solutions and pilots the solutions, implements the solutions, and government goes, oh, we can scale that. That makes a lot of sense. And so I think that, James, is how we, as you put it, bypass the government and continue marching towards progress on these issues.
Well, and I'm wondering if NHBSR has a role in bringing businesses together to do that, because businesses are trying to do it on their own. One company runs into its own limitations, but bringing our membership together, perhaps we have more power, more ability to bypass government?
I'm so glad you asked, James. So the each of the roundtable reports comes with an implication section for policymakers, for businesses, but also for NHBSR and what our role is. We did ask during the roundtables, what is it that NHBSR can do to support businesses in this? And as we open our slides with, we're conveners, where we lead and we inspire, and so that's a huge part of our mission and what we aim to do as an organization. And so we do see ourselves as the conduit for businesses to be able to establish those partnerships and then send them on their way and say, this is amazing, you're doing good work. And but if we can play a role in facilitating the opportunities for that to happen, much like we did at our spring conference, we brought businesses together. They're great at solving problems, and asked them, what are the solutions happening? What's missing? What should be considered? So we have some of that data and information, and hoping that we can give that back to the community, and folks with the capacity will be able to grab onto those and move them forward. But we can also be the skilled facilitators to help push those things along. So thanks for the question, James. Andrew, I saw you come off mute earlier.
Yeah, just quick. I mean, that sort of cross-sector partnership, I think, is critical. As I think I mentioned before. But then two other just quick thoughts. One is the idea of leaning on our friends in the financial services sector, because any federally chartered bank or insured bank is subject to the CRA, the Community Reinvestment Act, which requires them to make certain investments within their community. So, those are ways to potentially think about, if you have a relationship with your, bank, to maybe engage them. And then finally, I can't say this enough, the idea of, if you're a small business person, if you're a large business person, having your representatives, both at the state and federal level, come and literally come see, touch your product, your facility, whatever you do, because it just gives them a touch point that is, we find to be very, very impactful. So, all you have to do is ask, and ideally, maybe you do it with a couple of partners. They may even be your competitors, but that's okay. To get them, especially if you live in a more remote state. It is one of the benefits, though, of New Hampshire, right? It's not California or Texas, where, Texas has two senators, just like we have two senators. Little easier for ours to get around and make it up, even if you are sort of up in the North County, where it might be a little less accessible. It's still doable on a probably much more likely basis.
I would go further than CRA with our community banks and mutual holdings. They actually design product for community. So with Mascoma, they designed the low interest, affordable workforce housing with very low interest for developers to build affordable housing. With Kennebunk, they were looking at land that they own. So it's beyond just community, whether it's volunteerism or donations or sponsorship. They go above and beyond and design product to solve these problems as well. So there's a lot of financing solutions to be taken advantage of.
And to the extent that that can be amplified is probably useful.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And to touch on your point, Andrew, about having legislators come, we have the federal delegates, which are two each, of course, but also we have unique access to our state level representatives and senators who represent. I mean, I think my representative and representatives, multiple in my town, were all elected on less than 3,000 votes. That's not a lot of people that they're representing generally in one space. And so gathering together groups of state legislators to come look and see and view your products is something that BSR would be happy to partner and help facilitate as well. And part of some of the things that we hope to do is build those really deep connections with our state legislators. Because at the end of the day, the kind of investment that we're looking at, unfortunately, New Hampshire doesn't have a lot of power in the federal space to help make that possible. We have great federal delegates who are very, very responsive. But a lot of the money is actually flowing from the state, and that's where I think we have the most opportunity to make an impact right now. So I'll close this out with kind of two broader questions here, and I won't bring the slides back up. I'll just talk to you about them. But the first one is just if you want to put it in the chat, what is your biggest takeaway? If you could sum it down to like one word or phrase, what's your biggest takeaway? And feel free to come off mute too from today. There is hope. Oh, I love that, Elizabeth. I love that. Opportunity to think differently. Wonderful. Now I put you all on the spot on this one. See lots of thumbs up too.
Yeah, I just jump in and say, the challenges are certainly significant, and yet the assets here are real, they're tangible, and people do want to be here. It's just a matter, I think, of us working a little bit better together.
Awesome. Collaboration. You said it. Andrew said it as Mariah put it in. Amazing. Cool. And I will share my screen one last time, and you don't have to do it through this app thing, but just kind of throw it in there and go ahead and put it in the chat or say it out loud, what it is that you want to commit to. Oh, and thanks, Lisa. Strength in numbers for sure. So we have this little action menu here: unite, advocate, participate, share, partner. Ooh, somebody's still in there and they put in their answer. That's great. So just a little something to leave you with on how it is that you want to engage with New Hampshire, business friendly New Hampshire. And I apologize if there's background noise. I have somebody mowing their lawn right outside my window. Thanks for repeating that thought, Debbie, that the NHBSR initiative is not, the Business Friendly New Hampshire initiative is not NHBSR exclusive. These resources are open source. We want you to download it, use it, co-brand it, however it is that you need. And if there's something that you're looking for to help you use it, then please feel free to let us know. Go ahead, James.
Thanks. I'm curious, we've got the upcoming discussions that we're going to have about the various topics. What's going to come out of those? Will there be a list of actions that come out of those that people will commit to taking, or is it just educational?
Is there a toolkit, Tiffany?
No
I
toolkit.
hate the word toolkit.
I hate the word toolkit. Nobody uses toolkit. So we have, of course, the business friendly toolkit. That's not a toolkit, but it's a toolkit. But as far as the individual webinars are concerned, it's continued reinforcement of using the business friendly narrative for one, and also reframing each of the specific workforce and climate issues as business issues. And so giving language to using that. And then additionally, we will be digging in a little deeper to those business action menus in the individual webinars, because that's really where kind of the rubber hits the road is we can all think about, partnering on different workforce issues, but once you kind of section them out into specific ones, you see that businesses are definitely have the things that are impacting their business most. And so, for example, within the advocate breakout space for the future webinars, they will have issue experts and nonprofit partners talking about upcoming policy opportunities and getting business reactions to those policy opportunities, but also helping to connect them directly with those nonprofits that are doing that policy engagement as well, and encouraging them to be part of that conversation. Is that helpful?
It is. I'm always looking for action.
Mhm.
and trackable action. So it's one thing to offer up, here are actions that you could take.
Mhm.
It's another one to be coordinated, which is what I think many of us are trying to be here, coordinated with our actions and tracking toward actual execution and actual impact.
Yeah. I would say that those webinars are the kickoff to coordinated action, if that makes sense. There's like a little bit too much to do in an hour and a half,
Yeah.
but it will help us to identify those businesses that are bought into those particular issues and want to work toward coordinated action, and will help us to connect them into initiatives that are already happening across the state, and that BSR doesn't necessarily have to be the catalyst for, but there are things that are already happening. So, for example, Manchester has the childcare, the Mayor's Commission on Childcare, where they're developing pilots, and the Seacoast has the City Council is developing childcare initiatives and engaging business. So we want to be able to plug the businesses that participate into those initiatives. Okay, so there's our final slide here. Please definitely join us for future webinars. Go to our website and download the toolkit, not toolkit, and I hope to see you at a future webinar. Thanks so much for staying until the end and for engaging in this this end of the time discussion. Have a good day.
Thank you.